All right, the recording's in progress. Here we are, roaming
Mhm.
freely inside the cage. We're going to be starting tonight on page 82. We are talking about type 5. So just last week, we started the chapter 5, types 5, 8, and 2. And we got partway through type 5. I don't know if we'll finish tonight, but we'll see how close we get. Um, before we dive into the text, anything from last week that you've been thinking about, didn't quite develop enough? Questions, comments, anything?
None of
Okay.
it developed enough for me. So I always am awkward about that question. I need to sit with all of it for like 3 more years before I can even answer that question. That's the truth.
Well, the question is, did we develop it enough? You get to develop it further. But
Yeah.
if we said all we can, then but that's the thing. If stuff comes up and it can be from weeks past, this is the time for us to discuss it. So don't be afraid to bring things up that that are not quite finding a place to snick into place in your mind anymore.
What page are we on? 82? I thought it was
82.
81.
Actually, what I wanted to do was just back up
Okay.
a couple of paragraphs and read a couple of paragraphs of 5 just to get ourselves back in sync. Because when we start mid-span, it's always a little iffy. So page 82, type 5, holy idea, omniscience and transparency. So let's just read that first paragraph. Um, and a little bit of the second, just so we can remind ourselves where we're starting from. Remember, each one of these types is going to have the same format. I'm going to talk about the holy ideas, and then the initial wounding and subsequent development, and then getting into the point of avoidance and the virtue. So each one of these is going to have the same shape to it. So the life energy of any type 5, like that of 9, is unbalanced toward yin. And I want to just point out, we didn't point this out last time. He's saying that the life energy of any type 5, like that of 9, is unbalanced towards yin. So
Mhm.
that means when the energy is balanced, guess what? Yin and yang are in balance. See, that's really the goal here. We want our yin and our yang energy both available to us, that we're able to use it and flow through it in a balanced state, and even the reconciling energy as well. But that yin and yang is not supposed to be either or. It's supposed to be both and, as always. If we're in a balanced state, we have access to both of those energies, and they're complementary and they're necessary. All right. But when a 5 becomes unbalanced, it's going to unbalance toward yin, just like the 9 would unbalance toward yin. Others are going to unbalance toward yang or unbalance toward reconciling energy. But I just
Remind
wanted to
me,
point that out, that our goal, of course, is to be in balance.
is yin
At
receiving or
first,
giving?
I'm sorry,
Is yin receiving or giving?
Hmm.
yin would be I guess you would consider it more receiving.
Receiving,
You
okay.
know, yang is the outward focused, the transmitting sort of energy, male, masculine, as opposed to feminine, yin. But really, it's more like the energies of the sun, direct rays, straight rays of the sun, the white light coming down. That would be intellect, that would be thought and clarity and accomplishment, that sort of thing. Whereas yin is going to be nighttime and accommodation and consolidation and the curved energies of wind and water. So you've got those complementary aspects, so night and day and so on and so forth. So you can look at it that way. But what we need is both, obviously. If we're balanced, we're going to have both. But each one of these types is going to unbalance into one of three characteristic places, either yin, yang, or reconciling. But I just wanted to point that out. So the 5 is going to unbalance toward yin. At first, this may seem strange to those of you who are not 5s. From the outside, 5s can seem so withdrawn and socially isolated that it is hard to see how they can be yin. But this is only because many people limit their understanding of yin energy to receptivity in the arena of social relationships. So there's your receptivity, Bill, right? But we normally think of it in social relationships. But the 5 is extremely receptive and yin, but in the mental arena rather than the social. If you doubt this, just watch a 5 open a book. To a 5, a book is a sacred object to be absorbed whole in its entirety. And we talked about that for a while because some of you thought, I'm not a reader, but I'm still thinking I'm a 5. And it's okay. Don't worry about such things.
So I've got to ask the question because page 31, that wonderful wheel identifies 5 as yang.
What?
I know.
No, it's yin.
Yeah, it's
Where are you
it's
seeing?
the
sorry.
middle shade.
Yeah,
Long
it's a
drive, you
middle
guys.
shade.
It's a middle shade. I got you.
Yeah. So it's yin.
Thanks for bearing with me, everybody.
Yeah. But that's a great wheel if you're looking at page 31, because now you
Yes.
can see, those triangles that we're working through right now. You can see how each triangle is going to contain one of the 3 types of energies and also one of the 3 types of centers of experience. So in each triangle, there's going to be that same, unity there. So body, heart, mind, yin, yang, reconciling. We're going to have one of each in each of the 3 triangles that we're dealing with in the 9 enneatypes. Back to page 82. The Enneagram tradition describes the holy idea of type 5 with 2 names, holy omniscience and holy transparency. Holy omniscience refers to the spiritual intuition that everything is an expression of one original awareness. We were talking about that in terms of, some consciousness, some unitive consciousness, and that each one of us is going to be an emanation of that consciousness. So this holy omniscience is the spiritual intuition that we and everything is an expression of this one original awareness or consciousness. Whereas holy transparency refers to the perception that every individual being is totally and completely illuminated by that same awareness. Okay. If we think of the awareness, theistically as God's presence, then we are all emanations of God's presence, God's consciousness, and we are all also illuminated and expressions of that same presence or awareness. Now, this is what is happening to the 5 in the pristine state as the infant, right? This is the holy omniscience and holy transparency. But then go to the next page, initial wounding and subsequent development. Here's where it all goes pear-shaped, right? For the type 5 as they get older in their childhood. The failures of the holding environment in infancy. So that is the nuclear family, the parents and anyone else who's caregiving at this point. So the failures of the holding environment in infancy threaten these sensitivities. Many 5s seem to experience a double failure of mothering. The first occurs with the embodiment itself. They seem to feel that the very first entity to hold them, gravity, was an awkward mother, and that they have never been quite comfortable in her arms. Some of them additionally feel that their own parents were either invasive or not present. Either way, their experience was that they were never really held. Accordingly, many 5s grew up feeling emotionally unconnected to those around them. The resulting not whole is a sense of pervasive emptiness surrounded by walls that seem too fragile either to contain the emptiness or to protect it from being exploited. And the last paragraph here, if this was your early experience, your initial defensive reaction was to withdraw. You hid in an attempt to protect yourself. And this isn't just limited to 5s, think this through, even if you don't identify as a 5. You became preoccupied with boundaries. You became almost the reverse image of your fellow yin type 9, for whom any boundary seems like an impenetrable wall. But for you as a 5, it seemed that no boundary would ever be impermeable enough to keep you safe. The preoccupation with boundaries was the first distortion of holy transparency. Holy transparency was what? It was the perception that every individual being is totally and completely illuminated by that original awareness, right? So this is the distortion of that. In order to keep the boundaries secure, you learn to withdraw and make do with less because that made you feel less dependent upon others. The parsimony of your existence gave you a sense of safety, but it ultimately heightened your feelings of emptiness and separateness as well. So the very thing that we're using, and this goes for all of us, the very thing that we use to keep ourselves safe is the thing that ends up separating us and limiting us in the long run. And so we get some short-term gain because of our fears, but it's cutting us off from our long-term goals, purpose, and meaning and identity in life overall. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay, let's turn the page again, and we're going to go all the way to 85 now, and we're going to pick up where we left off last week. So this is going to be the point of avoidance, the virtue and vice for type 5. So the virtue for type 5 is traditionally called non-attachment. My wife Alice, a 5, suggests that non-attachment falls slightly short of describing the actual virtue for her type. She proposes that generosity may be better suited to name the original energy that is squeezed until it turns into avarice. I tend to agree. Now, on the face of it, generosity and non-attachment don't even seem in the same wheelhouse. Does that seem that way to you? I mean, that was my initial reaction as I hit that sentence at 60 miles an hour. But if you think about it, what are we talking? He's going to differentiate non-attachment from detachment. But if we understand non-attachment as being non-attached to anything, not attached to our preferences, not attached to our aversions. But if we are completely non-attached to all of these aspects and events and pieces of our lives, let's put it that way, that would allow us to allow our assets, our resources, the things, our possessions, to just flow through and flow through to the other. The non-attachment allows the flow to actually happen. It's only the fear that causes us to dam up the flow, to cling to something, to miserly hoard it, But the non-attachment allows things to flow. In that sense, it's a generosity. Not so much the usual understanding of generosity, as wanting to give to someone else, but it's just the ability to let things flow through, I think is the best way to understand where they're going with generosity. He's going to fill that out in just a second here. Any comments on that so far? Okay, so let's continue. Non-attachment seems such a neutral term. Technically, that is not quite true, of course. Non-attachment differs from detachment in that it neither rejects nor selects. It simply remains open to everything. Nonetheless, non-attachment may be a better description of the five's pivot of Tao than of its virtue. Non-attachment is the place of no resistance that allows for spontaneous movement of true generosity, which is the freedom to either protect oneself from harmful intrusion or offer oneself in a gesture of service according to the flow of the situation rather than according to the habits of the ego.
That was big.
That's huge, right? Because that allows you to be able to provide what love requires in a given situation. If you don't have these attachments, if you're not clinging in fear to something, then what needs to flow can flow. And it's based on what's in front of you. It's based on the situation. It's based on the person. It's not based on whatever programming from the past is still dragging you around by the nose ring, right? So there's some big bits in here. And that place of no resistance in the pivot of the Tao, you can also think of that as being unoffendable, right? I mean, all of these concepts, these virtues from the ancients, they're all saying the same thing, but they're using different vocabulary. Why to the ancient Christians was unoffendability such the highest virtue that you could attain? Because it's taking you to the pivot of the Tao. It's taking you to the place of no resistance. It's taking you to the place of generosity, non-attachment, understood as allowing the flow to just move through you. All the same kind of concept. Buddhism is the same thing, to become non-attached. So there's their perennial wisdom again, right? That we talked about earlier. these traditions coming to the same place, the same understanding of these basics of existence and human life. So entry into that pivot, as always, requires repeated surrendering to one's point of avoidance. Now, this is so important. Entry into that pivot, and this is not just for fives, every single one of us, as always, requires repeated surrendering to one's point of avoidance. I was talking to someone, and they said that they understood and became aware that a lot of what they would express was their old narrative talking, old narrative, quote unquote. The idea that there was a story that they've been telling themselves their whole lives, and they realize now that that story is an expression of the limitation of all that programming that's down there in the unconscious, right? But they still find themselves repeating that old narrative. And so the question becomes, well, how do I change that? I don't know how to change that. How do I change that? That narrative that keeps coming up. Even when I think I've put a stake through its heart, it keeps coming up, which means it's still down there. It's still working me when I'm not aware of it. The answer is right here in this sentence. Repeated surrendering to one's point of avoidance. The only way that we can change what is unconscious, the only way we can change this deep programming that comes out in thoughts and concepts and also in behavior is to repeatedly surrender and repeatedly do our opposite action or contrary action. So awareness is the key. We have to be aware in real time. But as we choose the other repeatedly over time, that is what is actually going to change that deep-seated behavior. You cannot do it directly. You can't do it consciously. You can't think your way through it. You're going to have to act your way through it repeatedly over time. The surrendering to one's point of avoidance, that means flowing with it, recognizing that the resistance is there, recognizing that the trigger is there, but not doing what the trigger would normally trigger you to do, what the emotion would trigger you to do.
Dave, what would be an
Lean
example?
into the point of avoidance.
Can we think of an example for that?
An example,
Yeah, put this into real situational terms in my brain.
yeah. Let's say a person has learned, especially maybe through their childhood, that commitment is an absolutely terrifying thing because their examples of commitment in their parents' marriage and what was modeled for them in childhood was just a dumpster fire, you know. And so they find themselves over and over again not being able to commit to relationships, or when they do, it becomes quickly a codependent relationship rather than something that is actually healthy. And so repeatedly, they find themselves either avoiding commitment, avoiding any entanglement in relationships. And so now, if you're going to repeatedly surrender to your point of avoidance, that means when you find the resistance and you're doing all the things that will keep you at arm's length from the other, and avoiding any type of commitment, even if it's something simple like just planning and dates and doing things and whatnot, that you go ahead and you make the commitment, you make the plan. That doesn't mean you go out and pick out curtains and get married, but you start taking risks in the direction of more and more and deeper and meaningful commitment. And over time, you will make progress. Obviously, you don't want to commit in places that are unhealthy either. So you're bringing your full awareness to the process, but you lean into the thing where the resistance is, or you lean into the thing where you feel the offense, the outrage or whatever, and you lean into that thing repeatedly. So in a way, it's kind of exposure therapy. You're exposing yourself to the thing that you fear the most. You have to risk something. It has to be a real risk, but you do it in a measured way. But it has to be repeated and over time that this takes place. Repeated experiences of this. And each time that you do that successfully, you're pulling another brick out of the wall that separates you from where you really want to be.
And maybe you're doing it incrementally where you're making small commitments and then a little bit bigger commitments and then even bigger commitments. And You see more successes.
Absolutely.
Also, maybe you can create a new persona that's ego-based, trying to go, you know what I mean? Like totally go in the other direction. Like I'm going to be the selfless one until I'm annihilated, you know?
Mm.
It's kind of like watch your pendulum, you know?
Right.
I don't know. Is that wrong? I don't mean to be resistant.
Wait,
Because
I really didn't catch what you're saying. Say that again, Lori.
Okay. Speaking from experience, um, you know, I've really taken to heart that instead of being, you know, the person who hides myself and hoards, which is very much my tendency, you know, this is mine. I mean, for everything in every area, self-protection, and also not being necessarily cared for in the certain ways that I needed to as a kid. Later, I realized, oh, I have to open myself up. You know, that's the cure, is giving myself away to a certain extent. I have gone pretty darn far down that road, not necessarily from a spiritual place, but from an egoic place. What I'm trying to say is I have overkilled on the selfless, give, be open to the degree that I've been in.
you're trying to overcompensate and go overboard on it.
Yeah, which
Mhm.
I'm sorry, it's just complicating the truth, but it's still true for me.
No, I totally get that. And, you know, a certain amount of mistakes are going to have to be made. How do you know when you've gone too far? Well, you got to go too far. You know, back to fishing line. You know, this is a 50-pound
Yep.
test fishing line. How do they know it's 50-pound test? Because they put 51 pounds on it and it broke. Okay, same thing here. You might need to go too far to come back. But I think the key, though, is what Kathy was saying. It's incremental. You know, you have to actually risk something. You have to give something away that means something to you and see whether it comes back or not. See whether it's honored by the other person or see whether it's
Right,
used. And you
right.
have to be willing to lose that. But you don't give away the farm in the first go around. You know, it's small things and you that's how you
Yeah.
build trust with another person. So it's going to be the same thing here.
And it needs to
Opening
be
yourself up,
present.
giving yourself away, but you do it in increments. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I meant it has to be presence related and not performance related. You know, that's the other part of that five dynamic.
Mhm. Yeah,
In
he's gonna make that point and reinforce that in a bit.
okay.
So I had a
Absolutely.
question for Lori. Lori, if you would you say that when you did overkill and went, were really putting yourself out there, and if maybe you fumbled or made a mistake or you went too far, did you find yourself retreating completely back to the hermit stage, or did you just kind of back up a little bit and not get scared to try again?
You're putting this all in past tense. This is ongoing, ongoing. I
Oh,
mean, I
it's
have gone
ongoing.
totally gotten wounded so badly that I just
Uh,
reeled it all in, but I've also kind of
Okay.
ventured out and then pulled back, and you know, I'm trying to figure out what the balance is so that I can look out for myself,
mhm.
which is not a bad thing.
Yeah,
But
it's a combo of both, it sounds like, yeah.
it's both and all. Yeah, thanks for asking.
You know, the other bit about this, Lori, as you just described that, is the difference between judgment and discernment. You know, Jesus tells us not to
Yeah.
judge because that's a conclusion we base on some internal standards. And so it's one size fits all, and we just apply it willy-nilly to everyone, right? That is damaging. That separates us one from another. But discernment is absolutely essential, and that's a conclusion we reach based on experience. So as you're giving yourself away in these increments, you're going to run across people who are not trustworthy.
Right.
And so you have to know who they are. Know there'll be some things, not everybody is 100% untrustworthy, or very few of us. So yeah, I can trust them with this, but not with that. And you kind of discern that and you realize that's where you're at. But now the next person, what you don't want to do is create a judgment out of that and say, okay, everybody is going to screw me. No, that person was not trustworthy, but now this person over here deserves your grace again and a risk to see what they can do. And so you're going to have to kind of play the field that way as you move forward. You don't want to keep trying to trust the person who is not trustworthy and keep banging your head against that particular wall, right? And
Gonna
so,
crack the code.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
But you also want to be open to their ability to change. And if they do, then you give them another chance at some point, maybe. But at any rate, it's a dance. There's no formula to this. We have to bring our whole self, our whole presence to each moment
Yeah.
in order to be
That's
able to
where the
do this. And
discernment.
there's your presence part that you were talking about, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not performative in that sense. It is complete presence. Bring it there, make your decisions based on what's there and do the best you can. And if you get burned, okay. But like Kathy's saying, that doesn't send you all the way back to square one. It just
Right.
sends you back one square and then you start again.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I want to add my own personal experience, that anger, the injustice, and what a cheater. He's cheating me. And I hung on to that for years until, but it wasn't increment. It was like sudden because somebody said, who is my counselor, said, I came to the conclusion it doesn't matter anymore. And then once I said it doesn't matter anymore, that was it. I think rather than detaching, it was already non-attachment. I think that's the difference.
Oh,
Detach is I was hanging on and actively saying, no, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to detach. I'm going to detach. Whereas non-attachment is, that's it. There's no more attachment. It's two different things. One is active. One is just.
So you're not getting hurt or offended because you've detached from that situation.
Well, see, that's the difference. I'm realizing detachment is an active thing. I have to detach. Like, I'm going to be patient. I am so impatient. I'm going to be patient with this. I'm going to tolerate this. That is
are you
detachment.
saying that unattached is more neutral?
Right. Whereas non-attachment is, I don't care.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter anymore.
Hmm.
It's no longer an active part in me to say, I will detach.
Mhm.
I think probably the best way to understand the difference between detachment and non-attachment, when you detach, you're removing your presence. But when you're non-attached, you can still be present, right? But you don't have any resistance one way or the other. You are non-attached. The person can be exactly who they are, and you can still be present to them. You will have learned, hopefully, where to place boundaries and how to be able to be safe if that person is toxic, but you won't have that reaction to them that detaches you. Maybe some people are so toxic you have to detach, and there's that too.
Yeah.
But non-attachment allows us to still be present, and that's the big piece.
And I wonder if that's partly the reason why I think it's some of the things I've learned about the five that sometimes is referred to as the observer. It can also be referred to as the observer. And I can see that as a five. They're really maybe adjacent or on the outskirts, kind of protecting themselves, but not attached or unattached, just watching and weighing and discerning, but still present, but they're really high observers too. They may not be the kind that are going to jump in, but they're going to, or if they do, they're going to do it kind of in a calculated way, I think, once they've thought it through and that kind of thing. So I have heard the five referred to as sometimes an observer. So that makes sense from what you're saying, or what Schafer is saying here, I think, too.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, I wanted to come back to Ellen's comment there about like tying it back into this idea of being unoffendable. I think being unoffendable might mean I'm detached. I think I can be offended, but if I hold on to the offense, right? Like kind of like you said before, we can't help what we like and what we don't like. Like if somebody insults me, in the moment I might feel the offense, but I feel like it's like if I'm going to be in this frictionless place where I'm going with the flow and fully being present to my own experience, I can be offended in the moment and just not hold on to that offense.
Yes.
You're not stuck there.
Not get stuck there, but I'm going to be offended, I think.
Well, and most of us will be, but the goal is to get to the place where you're non-attached enough, where you just let others have their impressions. You
Yeah.
can also take in any criticism and take a look at it, be introspective about it, be reflective about it. Does this apply? Am I doing that? And you want to take a look at that. But you can do that in the observer way that Kathy's talking about. It doesn't have to be a full-blown offense and a lot of emotional content to it. But I think, as you're trying to get there, if that's the goal,
Mhm.
the intermediate place is, yeah, I still feel the offense, but I'm present enough that I'm not going to act on it. I'm going to open up the space between the stimulus and response, and I'm going to make a choice that love requires, but I can't help what I feel. But I think the further you go on this, the less and less that you are actually triggered emotionally by this as well. And
Oh,
that's the
what a shame
freedom
that
that
is.
Jesus is talking about when we can really see the truth of ourselves and what's going on. The freedom is that we don't have to be drug around, the tail wagging the dog by all of this.
Mhm.
Giving
Bill, were you
emotions a
trying to
bad
say
rap.
something?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was
Oh, both Bills. Okay. I
both
think
Yeah.
Bill,
Bills.
yeah, Bill Feller's first and then Bill P.
What's rolling around in my head is I know in Al-Anon there's a concept of loving detachment. And this is starting, I'm kind of chewing on this a little bit. Judy, maybe you can pitch in here and help me describe this. But, when you have a dynamic with your partner or spouse, there's an intimacy there that's required. And yet there's also a time when you can't avoid but being offended. And I offend. Uh, so there's that. What's the difference between loving detachment in moments like that and being unattached,
I would argue that detachment with love, Al-Anon style, is non-attachment,
non-attachment?
as we're trying to define it here.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Because the detachment with love brings back in the presence,
Yeah.
right? You're detaching from them emotionally. You're not going to ride the roller coaster with them anymore. Their highs aren't going to be your highs and their lows, their lows. But you're still going to be present. That's the love part. And
Yeah.
that's how we're defining non-attachment.
Okay. All right.
Like curiosity instead of judgment from that observer status.
Ooh, that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's good.
I think one of the phrases that's used in Al-Anon is detachment with love is neither kind nor unkind. So you let go of the emotional reaction and don't take it on. You observe it, don't absorb it.
Mhm.
That's it. And that's what
Say that
he's
again,
really
Judy.
defining as non-attachment here. Yeah. Great. I love that.
Detachment with love is what, Judy?
Is neither kind nor unkind. And
Huh.
it's a place where you observe but don't absorb.
Mm.
But is this non-attachment always positive? Because it feels like, I mean, like with this, the remarks lately that I'm going to annihilate a civilization, it seems to me that there's a lot of people with non-attachment.
Are you talking about empathy, kind of?
I'm not really sure, but I feel like, is it non-attachment really that positive? Because as a social construct, it seems like a lot of people want to or act in that place of non-attachment. Just doesn't impact me. And
No. We're defining non-attachment as a positive thing.
Right.
I
We're,
know, and that's
we're
why I'm
defining it.
wondering, because sometimes I see this non-attachment as a negative thing
Well,
from
that's something
what.
else then. It's not non-attachment in the way that we're using non-attachment here. We are using non-attachment here to mean what Judy was saying. It's not kind or it's unkind. It's not kind. It's curiosity and not judgment. It's not clinging on to any aversion or anything that we prefer. It's allowing things to flow through. It's liminal space. It's being able to
Okay.
be in that place in the middle where we can watch things go through and we can actually observe and we can make choices based on those that are going to be for the benefit of the most people for the longest amount of time. That's the way we're defining this. If you're talking about detachment, or if you're talking about complacency, or if you're talking about, just unawareness or obliviousness, that would be something else. But
I think, well,
we're not
the word
talking about we're not putting
that,
any of those in the category of non-attachment.
yeah. I think what came to mind when you described it, Jennifer, is something's happening with your neighbor, it's wrong, and it's more apathy.
Is it apathy? I mean, to
That's what
me,
came in my head.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just seems like a lot of people just go about their lives trying to look for non-attachment, or
Well, we're
they
not
are.
using it that way, Jennifer.
Okay.
So the way we're using it, it's a goal for us.
Yeah.
It's a goal that we
So
want to achieve.
so
Not having your own interests in it, in the game.
And
so
not only
in
that, the key, Jennifer, is that with non-attachment, we are still present. We're not apathetic. We're not detached. We're not uncaring or unempathetic,
okay.
but we are not attaching to any one thing. We are
And
allowing everything
and
to
this
come
would
in.
go for all of the personality types or just the five?
Well, it's certainly more pronounced in the five, but yes, you know, all of us need to achieve that non-attachment. All of us need to achieve unoffendability at some level. That should be a goal for all of us.
I would agree. I would agree. It's just that the negative one, it seems like that's something that's almost being, like a momentum or movement. So that's why I was a little confused.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
it does kind of come down to semantics. We're choosing terms and we're trying to describe something here. So yes, maybe it's a bit arbitrary that we choose non-attachment instead of detachment or unattachment. But having chosen non-attachment, or at least Schafer having chosen non-attachment, that's the way we're defining it. And it
Okay.
doesn't include those other negative aspects that you're bringing in,
Okay.
which would be undesirable, right?
Okay.
Bill P, did you have something we've been cutting you off from?
No, yes. I'm curious what the group thinks. I've spent a lot of time learning what emotions are all about, and I've reached the conclusion that there are neither good nor bad emotions. So judging an emotion is forming an attachment to it.
Mm.
I don't like being scared. I don't like being angry. But if I form an attachment to anger, I wind up depressed. Thank you, therapy.
Mm.
So, and having grown up with parents who are emotionally unavailable, I had to learn this the hard way. But I'm convinced that fully experiencing the emotion that comes my way is a form of detaching. I'm using detaching so that I can attach to whatever is right or real or what I want.
Mm.
So that's a real judgment trip, Dave. You were talking about judgment and discernment
Mm.
because the act of feeling it fully allows me to release the judgment, whether that's
Yeah.
empathy for someone else or sympathy, or whether it's empathy for myself or my future self.
Yeah, I would say, Bill, that that is non-attachment, allowing yourself to feel it freely rather than detachment.
Thank you.
Like detachment is avoidance of
Right.
some sort. Like I'm numbing, right? Like
Yeah, I grew up detached,
yeah,
and now I've learned to attach some other way,
to become non-attached.
become non-attached. Stupid language.
Tricky.
Yeah.
No, and I think when we really do experience being non-attached, or detaching with love, the point is to um, be present and yet experience as much as we can compassion for the other person, and then be able to um, affirm them in some way.
Mm.
Or for myself.
Mhm.
Other people are kind of difficult, but I can.
If this helps also, taking a page out of Buddhism, everything in this life is impermanent. Everything is transitory. Everything's in motion. If we attach to anything that is impermanent and in motion, it's going to create suffering. Um, that's why we're at the bank of the river and we're watching everything flow through. Our emotions are flowing through, events are flowing through, all sorts of things are flowing through, but they're impermanent. They're temporary. And
Yeah.
so we don't want to attach to those as if that's a permanent state. We can make it so in our egoic minds. We can write those scripts and we can hang on to those narratives if we want to, but they will be limiting us because they're transitory. And so that's another thing that our discernment can do for us and our awareness can do for us, as we observe ourselves interiorly. we can see this flow, this constant flow of thoughts and emotions and narratives and scripts. And if we don't attach to them, they flow on by and we remain. That's the idea here.
So I just had a thought. So a
Oh.
person who's Buddhist who has non-attachment, do they make good spouses? No, I mean like
It's a good
Are
question.
you looking for one?
no.
Buddhist. one.
I'm just saying, if the other spouse says,
There's a Buddhist dating app, I think, Ellen.
oh, I don't want non-attachment.
Okay, Ellen.
Just,
So now we're getting back to Viktor Frankl. There are only two races of mankind, the decent and the indecent.
it's just a thought.
You get that? The decent and the indecent. There's going to be decent Buddhists and there's going to be indecent Buddhists. So it's not the Buddhism that makes the good spouse. It's the decency that makes the good spouse. Look for that.
Well, I do think that some of this, I can see myself getting so hung up on these things because of taking things literally. And, like you were saying, that we're empirical. And so I do get, my mind just goes in one way because like the non-attachment, that definition of what I thought it was, and then the empirical of you believe this. And I think this goes back to where you're saying a lot of this stuff is more Eastern. You have to take it in context. There's this meaning, because like for the book, a powerful word for me instead of non-attachment has been being an observer. And that seems to resonate. So I do feel like some words just trip me up and kind of are almost like roadblocks because of what I've built into them,
Yeah.
Absolutely, Jennifer. And pick the vocabulary that works for you. Absolutely. If one word resonates and it creates that image so that you can understand the concept, and that's perfect. That's perfect. So yeah, we're throwing vocabulary at something that is very difficult, if not impossible, to fully express.
Yeah, I think the descriptions are helping, but I realize I just put these mountains in front of it because that's like that's the only definition of the only way. And I think this book is trying to show me more options.
Amen.
But I do like what Jennifer was questioning about earlier. Like you can have somebody who is like a psychopath, right? And they're completely non-attached, right? Like they're, or would you say the psychopath is more detached?
Definitely detached.
I would say that.
How much presence William, how much presence are you going to get out of a psychopath?
He's
gonna work with that.
I do believe that psychopaths can have a lot of advantages in life.
Here, what's that book? The
For who?
bestseller by
Yeah, for who?
Ronson, Psychopath Test. Great book.
What was that?
There's a book about this. It's called The Psychopath Test, and I think the author is named Ronson, but you have to check me on that.
I didn't have to go check it out.
They're powerful, beautiful people in many ways, however.
I mean, but I'm saying like a psychopath can have like a peace of mind about them, right? Like somebody who can hurt another person and just not be bothered by it, right?
Because
like
they're
not
in their own world.
But I'm saying for
Completely
them,
detached and separated from others and their feelings and their right to life and so on and so forth.
but if we're thinking of non-attachment as neither kind or unkind, right? Then, somebody can inflict great harm, like you mentioned, Jennifer, of this idea of like bombing some foreign country off the face of the earth and just not being attached to whether that's a moral upset or,
Okay, so are you just playing devil's advocate here and trying to mess with the
No.
curve, or are
No.
you're really serious?
No, I am thinking of our current political climate and whether we're viewing Donald Trump and his actions in the Middle East as detached or non-attached?
Okay, now you're mixing metaphors now. You've moved from the micro to the macro, and all the
Oh.
rules change as soon as you do that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you got to be very careful. If you're going to psychoanalyze Trump as an individual, that's different. But if you're talking policy, then you've left the building that we're in
Mm,
right now. Okay, so it's real important for us to remember what we're doing here. You know, we're
mm,
looking interiorly from the inside out, but we're looking in a micro way, and the rules change from micro to macro.
Mm, that's interesting.
And
Well,
a psychopath is not going to be living in anybody else's world. That's the detached part. That's beyond detachment, you know. That's complete obliviousness. And obviously, non-attachment, as we're defining it, is going to take us in. And being not kind or unkind, if you do an unkind act, well, then you've left the building of even what detachment with love is supposed to be.
right.
So, just if we're going to arbitrarily pick a term and then define it, we want to stick with those definitions as the goal that we're trying to reach, as opposed to any of these others. That's
I think
important.
we're actually talking about something different, which maybe is empathy. And where there's a lack of empathy, that might be a whole different ball game. So I don't know, but that goes away from the attachment detachment conversation,
Mm,
maybe.
But empathy has a lot to do with presence.
Yes.
So there's that.
And where there's a
So
lack of empathy, that's a whole other
lack of
ball of wax.
empathy, lack of presence, they kind of go hand in hand.
There's your part of your detachment, William, maybe. But
mhm.
so
Yeah.
William, being the psychologist, so what, a sociopath? So you have moral people and immoral. A
Yeah.
sociopath is amoral? Like
They
nothing?
might be. They might be. They might be more amoral than,
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
neither good or bad. You're saying, I'm doing this
Yeah.
because I want that, whatever, gold bars you have, so I'm gonna kill you. It's
Yeah.
amoral.
Yeah. And it's, don't take it personally that you got killed.
Right.
I
So is
just
that
wanted
what
to.
non,
Yeah.
right. But is that what non-attachment is?
No,
No?
no, come
Judy,
on,
please
guys.
clarify.
we've
Jeez.
seen plenty of movies where people point the gun and they say, it ain't personal, and
It
then they
ain't
pull the
personal.
trigger.
Ain't
We've seen that
personal,
all the
right.
time. It's a whole different
It's-
ballgame.
Watching too
Spiraling,
much
Dave. We're
TV.
I've
spiraling.
lost the thread, guys.
Yeah, Dave, we're
Completely
spiraling.
lost the thread. Yeah. The amorality of a sociopath is only amoral to them in their own world, in their own self-justification. To them, yeah, it's
Turn it
neither
you.
anything. It's just whatever is good for them at the moment is the moral and the justifiable thing. But to the rest of us in society that has to live in a group setting, of course, that you can attach some morality to it if it's hurting another person or abusing them. So yeah, but what non-attachment does, it still connects us to everyone around us. We are still connected to them. We are able to let things flow. This idea of generosity is the flowing, allowing our resources to flow to others. We're not having to dam them up because of fear. We can allow them to flow. And so there is the connection, there is the empathy, there is the concern for others that is still present even as we're not attached to any one thing personally. We're not clinging to them. So
I remember my daughter had her best friend was a remarkable young woman who just spent her whole life being non-attached to possessions, to gifts, to whatever she had. She enjoyed it, she used it, she was present to it, she was grateful for it. But if someone admired it and really kind of fell in love with it, she said, "Here, it's yours."
Mm.
Just like that. No regret, no nothing. And
that is the perfect illustration, Judy. Yeah.
you
Mhm.
know,
That's
yeah,
where that's just what we would call generous. But to her, maybe it wasn't really generosity at all.
I
It,
don't
it
think it
was
was.
just that, at that moment, it was more important for the other person to have it than for her.
Yeah. Yeah. She was
That's
very
beautiful.
heartwarming. Yeah.
Would
That's
that we were all that way, right?
Mm.
I mean,
Yes.
within limits. You can't go giving away everything so that you don't have what you need to be able to be responsible to your dependents and family and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. There's got to be reason brought into this, but that is the principle.
My son is very generous and giving, but I've had to reel him in when it's been on my money, not his.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. It's really easy to be generous with other people's money, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which is different, Judy, too. And I think we talked about this with other numbers. There's also something in the Enneagram that says there's a give to get personality also.
Oh yeah. Oh
That's a
yeah,
whole
very
different
much.
ball game where you're
Oh,
giving, but
oh,
you are expecting something back, some sort of
yeah.
reciprocation. That's a different, you're talking about a different kind of generosity, I think. It's
Oh yeah.
free
Very much
flowing
so.
and easy and yeah.
Oh yeah. Had
Mm.
no regrets about it. Just was happy to see the smile on the face, and surprise and just, that was just her spirit.
Mm. Mm.
Whew, it was
So is
rare.
that the same? Is that the same as me regifting something?
That you don't want it?
I was never attached to that gift, and so I gave it away.
Non-attachment. I love it.
Not attachment.
Someone else
You've
could
just
use it more
described
than
the
you, right?
I think
described the white
I,
elephant at the
I
event.
think I'm gonna need
Oh,
special
the white
mute,
elephant, Bill.
I'm gonna need special mute buttons for Ellen and William. Keep us on track here.
Oh, it's too late.
It's too late, it's right.
All
I
right.
am no longer attached to the outcome of this event.
There you go. There you go. All right, let's finish this last paragraph so that we have a header that we can start with next week. So we're talking about the entry into the pivot. All right, as always, requires repeated surrendering to one's point of avoidance. The point of avoidance for a 5 is called emptiness. At first, this may seem mystifying. When 5s begin to take up the Enneagram's suggested path of development, it often seems that the experience to be avoided is not so much emptiness, but being too full of feelings, too full of things to do, too full of noise and distraction. With a little more practice, however, it gets clearer that the fear of too full is rooted in the belief that intense feelings, busy schedules, and high levels of activity or excitement will drain the 5's meager resources until the 5 is totally depleted.
Yeah.
So we're right back to that, the point of avoidance, that idea of emptiness is, and I think, Laura, you expressed this too,
Yes.
is that you got to hold on to this stuff because, man, if I keep giving it away, there'll be absolutely nothing left. And these people around me, they're black holes. They'll just keep sucking everything down and nothing comes back.
And actually, the sensation often has been like fist in the mouth, like somebody's coming at me and filling me with their stuff. Sorry, that was pretty graphic, but that's the sensation of fullness is what I mean, like too full, like you can't breathe.
Interesting.
Sorry.
No, that's a good
Good. That's
description.
good.
Good one.
Helps me understand one of my son-in-laws better.
Ah,
Is he a 5?
do you see him as a 5, Judy?
My Kauai son-in-law, he does have this fear. And it comes out when he's really full up with all the distractions, the pulls on him. He now has 3 children, and then he has his wife asking for some relief that she needs a little day break, to just go out and do something. And they don't fight very often, but boy, there was an argument on this one. Because he conserves his resources, and holds on to them, and is afraid that it's just going to be that he's not going to be able to handle it, that he'll somehow fall into an abyss. Not sure if he would describe it that way, but fist in the mouth works too. But he's stretching his limits, and his comfort zone, and he still engages and negotiated with his wife to give her some time when he comes home after a full day of work and the kids are running up to him and everybody wants a piece of him. And he's been willing to, still give, and allow her some time to herself. So that's really impressive. They're both working it through. He's a 5, she's a 7.
Mm.
So
Nice.
she's full of adventure.
Mm.
And obviously, we do need to set boundaries. And there are times that we do need to conserve resources. And so this isn't, again, it's not either or, it's both and. We're trying to strike the balance. We should be able to access yin and yang. We should be able to access, extrovertism and introvertism. We should be able to access these things and use them when love requires and be as balanced as we can. And so, it's only when these things get out of balance and they become a caricature of themselves that we really have to take a look at what's going on. And then as awareness catches up, then we can pull back and we can make adjustments, but yes, I mean, we do need to be able to make these kind of discernments and what do we need? And so, yeah, it's a dance.
It is a dance.
We're
I
all
was
going to be all the
watching,
things.
sorry.
I
Me?
missed that last one.
Michael? I was watching a YouTube video with Russ Hudson talking about this particular point of avoidance, the avoiding emptiness. And Russ is a type 5 on the Enneagram. And he believes that the real point of avoidance for 5s is being itself. Like
Ooh.
avoiding being. And the way I can't flush out his thoughts completely on that, but I love the way he explained it.
So what does that mean?
Oh, I have no idea.
I'll tell you what, hold that thought until next week or read ahead, because Schafer does address something along those lines in the next section.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
But we're not going to get to it tonight.
Okay.
This was a great discussion. I didn't anticipate us going off as we did. That was a really good. I hope that you guys found that instructive. Just hearing from everybody.
I'm just glad that psychopaths are welcome here.
Amen.
Likewise, thank you.
As both detached and non-attached.
Have empathy. You better have empathy, Lori. I'm sure you do.
And amorality, how's that?
Amorality.
Dr. William, are you here surfing for new clients?
We're here.
He's screening. He's interviewing now as we speak.
That's great.
William has so much wisdom. I just want to add that. Thank you.
It's great stuff. And hello, Frank.
Hello.
Frank dropped in and has been just kind of lurking in the background there. So, all right, good job tonight. Let's pick it up here next week, and where's Scotty? Scotty.
I'm here. Thank you, Father, for this time together and all the craziness that we put each other through and volunteer for and have fun with and enjoy the ride. We're grateful for you and your Holy Spirit and the peace and the grace and the mercy and the comfort and the knowledge and the wisdom and the discernment and all the aspects of what make you as amazing as you are. We're grateful to have you in our lives and to have you choose us to be in your life. We love you, Lord. It's in your name that we pray. We give our thanks and we say our amen. So thank you, Lord Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Scott.
All right, thanks everybody.
Welcome,
See you on Sunday.
Have a
Got
crazy
it,
week.
guys.
Yeah, make sure you got that
Sunday.
Sunday.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
And good night, Jordana and Frank.
See
Goodbye.
you on Sunday.
All right. See you Sunday, dear.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye-bye.